but tangible plots to overturn elections, incite vigilantes with conspiracy theories, target, attack, and try to assassinate civilian leaders, all out in the open. And facing these plots, people following the law do expect action. Wouldn't you? Indictments, arrests, trials, convictions when supported by evidence. It's all very familiar right now with what we're living through in America, but the reporting that I'm mentioning here is not only about America. Here's the news seen over the weekend in Peru, where the capital featured a roiling debate about this nation's democracy in a response to a blatant coup attempt. You see protesters and police there, fires burning, clashes in the streets, tear gas, all part of the fallout from the country's leader making an extraordinary response to his own looming impeachment. Pedro Castillo proclaimed that the government's impeachment process was basically a witch hunt, as he was facing a repeated push to impeach him over alleged improprieties. Not only did he say he'd defy it, but he proclaimed he would seize dictatorial powers to just eliminate and dissolve Congress. The Congress that, of course, was about to impeach him again. Now, this is hours before that planned impeachment vote. On Thursday, he went out and addressed the nation and just claimed that he would have his own new emergency powers. He declared a national curfew, and he asserted that he had the power, supposedly, to just temporarily dissolve Congress.
A cuyo efecto se dictan las siguientes medidas. Disolver temporalmente el Congreso de la República e instaurar un gobierno de emergencia excepcional.
What he's saying there was that he would dictate those measures. Word choice. Many Peruvians saw it as a dictator trying to dictate a coup in a nation that has faced real, effective military coups before. Protests were swift, and Castillo's supporters, though, were also vocal as this all played out.
We start with breaking news from Peru, where President Pedro Castillo says that he's dissolving Congress.
Within just 3 hours of the current president's attempt to overthrow the government, the legislature overwhelmingly voted to impeach President Castillo.
A favor, 101 congresistas. Ha sido aprobada la resolución que declara la vacancia de la presidencia de la República.
We're here to defend the rule of law, democracy, and to back the Republica's Congress.
Es una vergüenza nacional. Todo este corrupto se han vendido, han traicionado a nuestro presidente Pedro Castillo.
Now, that was just some of what the standoff looked like immediately. The protests continue tonight, and as I mentioned. But here's what's different now. Castillo is no longer in office. That Congress was not dissolved. His own cabinet swiftly resigned in protest. That impeachment he was trying to forestall went forward. A court in that country declared his effort an invalid maneuver. The coup failed. You might be thinking, well, that's a lot, Ari. I see where you're going with this. But that's not all. Peruvian authorities charged Castillo with rebellion and conspiracy. They arrested him. He's now in custody, as you can see right there. The government's reaction to this indicted rebellion from within, from the most powerful official in government, was to impeach him, remove him, and swiftly arrest him, as the headlines show. The sheer speed of that defenestration is remarkable. Castillo woke up Thursday as the president, surrounded by guards, running the military. On the same day, in another country with a history of some of the worst horrors of dictatorships ever in world history, Germany had its own big story here. But today, Germany is seen as a functioning democracy and a strong U.S. ally in Western Europe. But it faced this organized coup plot so massive that the government carried out a dramatic series of raids on over 100 locations.
In early morning raids across Germany, thousands of police officers at more than 100 locations arrested 25 people,
accusing them of trying to overthrow the government in a coup.
Prosecutors say the suspects had acquired weapons, organized weapons training, and intended to storm the German parliament building.
The number of suspects.
A right-wing effort to fuse Europe's ugly past with right-wing movements against democracy in America and to topple this Western democracy. The European continent's history is very much alive here because those coup plotters also rallied around the conspiracy theory that claims the real Germany of the past, read Nazi Germany, could somehow be restored by elevating this obscure prince who claimed a lineage to an ancient family dating back to the 1100s, I should say, dating back to the 1100s. It's just mentioned in that clip we showed, the 71-year-old Heinrich XIII. He's described as pushing a radical fringe ideology that rejects this modern German state and wants to reinstall the German monarchy. The plotter, swift arrests. No sign that political elites were just automatically spared. And you say, okay, Ari, there's a lot of things going on in the world all the time. Why is this the top story in an American news broadcast? Because admittedly, we don't do news about every other country every night. A lot of the news is nationalized, and you watch American MSNBC, you get a lot of American news. Well, this is American news, in a way. Because this is a glaring contrast, what you just saw, to what's happening in this country, which talks so much about being a leader on democracy, which means defending it against the criminals who would destroy it and rob it and steal it and oppress you. But this is a nation where an almost 2-year investigation and prosecution has led to hundreds of arrests for the Trump fans who physically stormed the Capitol, who attacked police, who brazenly and openly talked up assassinating politicians that day, Republicans and Democrats alike, Pence and Pelosi alike, as they quite literally obstructed and delayed the counting of the votes, one of several crimes committed, including the now convicted crime of sedition as well. So we know those arrests and trials are happening, while the political elites who hatched the plan to gather on January 6th, who urged those now convicted criminals on, knowing they were armed, none of them have been indicted on election crimes to date. So there are two categories here. And legally, the elites have been spared in this country, unlike other places. When I report on these two categories, I'm not adding an observation to the legal approach. I'm just quoting the Garland Justice Department, which has clearly marked these two lanes. So clearly, in fact, there was actually a tell about this division in the Attorney General's recent special counsel appointment, where he named this prosecutor to independently oversee the January 6th probe, but only part of it. This didn't get a ton of attention at the time, but it is right in the strike zone of what I'm telling you about. That formal written authorization by Garland empowering Special Counsel Smith to oversee the coup probe actually reveals the division that I'm referencing. Just take a look. It says that Smith will investigate efforts to interfere with the transfer of power in the January 6th vote. That's bullet 1 there. And then it says it does not apply to prosecutions of individuals physically present on the Capitol grounds on January 6th. You see that highlighted part? That's Merrick Garland saying that there's this other bucket, but Special Counsel Smith will not prosecute people who are physically present on the Capitol grounds. Now, it's possible that Smith will push for indictments of those other elites. In other words, he is not investigating the people who are physically present. He's only investigating the people who weren't, but might still have committed election crimes, a.k.a. the people who said, hey, come to Washington on the 6th. The lawyers, the Trump aides, or Trump himself. So if in this country, the DOJ gets around 2 years later to doing what these other countries did within days and actually recommends the indictment of those elites, Garland will then approve or deny that, and we'll know if there's a disagreement there under the rules. But this wider contrast is the point. It didn't take Germany or Peru 2 years to identify and charge political elites involved in public coup planning in Peru, or the evidence of coup planning in Germany. Much of it was secret. And even if you put aside the possibly intricate questions about whether former President Trump, now running for office, can be charged, we know the DOJ is investigating lawyers like John Eastman because he was publicly searched for his phone. We know they're looking at their own former DOJ official who was a Trump apologist within the DOJ, Jeffrey Clark. He was on record pushing to abuse government power to sabotage the January 6th counting. So while some people do have a tendency in the United States to look abroad and see something different, the clear abuse wall at home, it's more of a mixed picture. How could we ever charge one of our own? Americans don't do that, all that kind of American exceptionalism. The news right now that I'm here to tell you about is just facts, that places like Germany have busted up plots that track closely with the tactics and convicted crimes of the January 6th seditionists, and that the political elites and leaders quite publicly and brazenly trying to end democracy are documented. The difference comes not so much in the plots. We have them here. They have them there. In fact, it's well known in political science that it can happen here. The difference is in our nation's collective response. And I'm not saying, I don't think anyone's suggesting some other country automatically handles this perfectly or should be copied in every step of the way, but rather how glaring the contrast is that one ex-leader faces immediate trial for that failed coup, and another is not only scot-free, but running to take power again, having stoked a multi-year movement built on that insurrection, the sedition, the big lie, and ending democracy. So I don't think this is news about something happening over there. It's happening here, now, already. I'm telling you, it's serious. There are experts on authoritarianism who look at this contrast. Professor Ruth Ben-Ghiat explained recently, although before the Thursday events I just told you about, that when an unsuccessful coup is targeted an authoritarian leader abroad, the conspirators are promptly jailed or worse. In the U.S., the party that conspired in the failed coup remains unrepentant, and its leader, far from fleeing the country, she's talking about Trump, is at the time eyeing a run for the presidency. It's really remarkable. The thing about democracy is it doesn't work by itself. It is just a collection of what people do and what the government requires. If you go back far enough in our history books in this country, we teach kids we're this old democracy. That doesn't sound as accurate anymore if you count women voting or every human being voting. We ain't that old a democracy. Hey, I'm Ari Melber. Thanks for watching The Beat. I wanted to let you know I'm writing a foreword to the January 6th Committee's full report, which is coming out soon from HarperCollins. You can go pre-order the book right now, and it'll come to you first when the report comes out in the fall or whenever the government releases it. Just search Melber Jan 6th on Amazon or your favorite independent book site and click pre-order. You'll be the first to get both the report and my new piece on the coup conspiracy. You can also go to melberbook.com and order it there.